Thanks for joining us today to talk about the niche strategy for forecasting any of the subjects in the air, water, and energy field. And I'm going to remove something here that was in the way. And so it's called the sales guide for the company and each salesman because you're empowering the salespeople by doing this niche forecasting. Yeah, let's move on to the first slide. So detailed niche forecasts can become the foundation of the business strategy. And the most profitable market is an aggregation of these niches. The mistaken thinking is that market research in air, water, and energy can be like automobiles, but unfortunately, you don't have to register every valve, pump, piece of hose, or whatever. So the amount of available information is pretty sparse. In fact, there are no statistical sources that are very reliable in this whole field. So everything has to be developed from a niche basis on up. So each salesperson therefore should be assigned a role in pursuing relevant niches based on the percent of the sales effort that he's going to have to put in. So it's a neat way to tie it all together. You've got the corporate strategy, that's the aggregation of the niches. And then you have each salesman knowing how much he's responsible for in each niche and sub-niche. And each niche forecast is based on relevant facts and factors, some of which are best known by the local salesman. So this empowers him essentially to see that a forecast is not as accurate as it should be from his perspective. And so he's really empowered to help management revise forecasts. If he gets a lump forecast that is much more than what he's involved in, there's no way he can monitor it. So in terms of market strategy, this approach can be implemented one niche at a time with the low-hanging fruit. Let's move on. So each niche is and there are a million of them in the $10 trillion air, water, energy field. But each niche is, the way we're defining it, a $10 million market potential with a 20% EBITDA, with a 27% market share, I should say. So you're shooting for 2 million in revenue from this niche, and that niche can be a combination of geographies, industries, and products. And once you have it, obviously, not only pursuing it, but the sharing of the information among the salespeople, R&D, management, and so forth is critical. And the details about the niche, the facts and factors, can be communicated and debated among the various people involved in a niche. So let's move on. So how much time can be devoted to selling a niche product? So let's break it out. And as we said, we're looking at a niche as a $10 million opportunity, but with a 20% market share, you have a revenue of $2 million, and you should be shooting for. And so many of the companies, not many, but a minority of companies in the air, water, energy field are getting 30% or higher EBITDA, and that would entail a gross margin of 50% or so, and sales promotion could be in the neighborhood of $100,000 out of that 2 million, and sales personnel and the sales cost could be another 100,000. So, and that was with this EBITDA of the 30%. So the bottom line here, in terms of manipulating the salespeople, you've essentially got $100,000 worth of direct sales investment in order to come up with this $2 million market. So let's move on. Just graphically, if you've got 60 niches that you're pursuing, you've got $6 million in direct sales costs, not including promotion, that can be devoted to it. So we'll move on to the next one. So each niche can be divided into 10 $1 million sub-niches with different facts and factors, but also enough common factors that it makes sense to put them together in one niche. And I like to think of this in terms of Lego blocks, that they're going to be different combinations of the sub-niches and different shapes. So you can have many, many different niches from a few sub-niches. For instance, Lego, you get 1,000-piece Lego set, but you can make 1 million different objects from it. So each sub-niche is guided by up to 10,000 forecasts for the next 5 years. And these are selected from several products, multiple countries, multiple industries. And in many cases, you've got major customers that represent a whole sub-niche, or in some cases, even a whole niche. So let's move on. So let's take a real life scenario. This is one company that's a client of ours. And so they're doing about 200 million in valves and 600 million in pumps and 200 million in controls. So this represents a total of about 500 niches, and the number of man years is 50, and the sub niches total to be 5,000 sub niches, and so you've got 100 sub niches per man year, and you've got 10,000 forecasts per man year. So those 10,000 forecasts are ones from which a selection has to be made of what truly is the most profitable niche. But at that local level, you can pick and choose from that level of detail of forecasts. Let's move on. So the salesman can be assigned 5 to 50% of the sales effort for one niche. And it takes 10 niches to support one salesman. Nearly all sales efforts take more than one person. So the target for any one salesman should be the percentage of activity in a number of niches. Here's one example, for instance, for one salesman. For 4 niches, he could be responsible for 50%, which would be the equivalent of 2 niches and 20 sub-niches. For another 30 niches, he might be only responsible for 20% of the activity. So this accounts for 6 niches and 60 sub-niches. And for 20 niches, he may only be involved at a 10% level, which add the additional two niches and 20 sub-niches. So again, he is totaling responsibility in the aggregate for the equivalent of 10 niches and 100 sub-niches. So we'll go on to the next slide then. So the types of people that are involved here would be the local country salesperson. So the geography might only be one country or a portion of one country, but in some of your small Asian countries or Monaco and Luxembourg or something, you might have one individual with several different companies, countries, but there would be many industries in that country and many of the company's products. So the regional manager might be involved in more geographies and probably the same number of industries, but maybe fewer industries, and could be the same number or fewer products. Now the OEM is another opportunity here, and so the person who's calling on the OEMs and also on the major customers could be involved in all the geographies or part of thereof, and we focused on particular industries and particular many products. But over on the right-hand side here, he would be involved in only a few companies as opposed to these others. And then you've got product people. You've got a product manager that, again, could be many geographies, many industries, but selected to products that might even be only one product. And he would be involved in many different companies. So that's how all these niches would fit together. Move on to the next slide. So let's just take examples, for instance, in the pharmaceutical industry. Here's an example of some of the things we're doing. We've just done a deep dive in consumables for pharmaceutical industry, and this includes mops, and it includes caps, booties, garments, all these different things. And so that's easily available, but it's an example of level of detail. For laundering, it could be that level of detail, but we've just now done for every industry in every country and so forth. For a clean room, we just have the total laundering market. Valves, we've got 64 different categories, and that's just part of it. Actually, there's hundreds that we have broken out. The same thing for pumps, hose and coupling. We did an initial dive of about 8 different segments, and various containment, for instance, in the clean room industry. There's rooms and there's isolators and all these other things that can be analyzed. And then cross-flow membranes, there's the membranes for microfiltration, ultrafiltration, RO, et cetera. And then you have macrofiltration, which is a liquid technology with filter presses and gravity filters and all sorts of different things. So just gives you an idea of some of the products that might be involved in the pharmaceutical industry. Move on to the next slide. So in general, we have 80 different countries and aggregates of countries. Again, like I was mentioning, Monaco and Luxembourg would be part of other Western Europe. But in the United States and in China, you've got some very big markets. And actually in the Pacific region in the United States, in the pharmaceutical industry, it constitutes a big percentage of the 13% of the world's biopharmaceutical air, water, energy products. And then another way to look at it too in California is the California market is growing, and as a percentage of today's market, it's going to be the equivalent of 18% of the world today by 2027. So that's a big market and needs to be segmented, because undoubtedly for the major suppliers of air, water, energy, that is a market they're going to want to identify and pursue separately. And you could have 256 geographical niches by the time you slice and dice the large countries. And here it just shows, for instance, here that California is big, but then you can also look at the regions. If you add the Pacific region, we divide it into 9 regions in the U.S., 26 provinces in China, et cetera. And you can see that in the Pacific region, particularly in pharmaceuticals, California dominates the Pacific region. So we'll move on. You cannot overlook the large customers in this industry. And for instance, Amgen accounts for just under 2% of the world market and 7% of the market in the US, and 5% of which is in California, and then 2% Rhode Island, and they're building a plant in North Carolina. But as you can see, Pfizer's 4% of the world and so forth. So you've got to really identify those markets separately as well. And of course, in many cases, you have someone that is responsible for Pfizer on a worldwide basis. So that's a niche. It can be several different. It would be several different niches. So let's move on to the next slide. So, here was an example of the company we're talking about here, where in addition to the 10 basic valve types, they have a big push on diaphragm valve, which is a subsegment. So that needs to be pulled out separately. And the same thing with pumps. It's not just the screw pumps, it's twin screw that needs to be looked at. And control systems, about 4 different products. So you've got a number of different products that you've got a good start on in terms of what the niche market is. You've got 3 products that have to be brought up to that same level and before you start the whole niche analysis. And this company is large enough, certainly, that you've got to break out China and the United States, and aggregate the small countries in Asia and Europe and so forth there. And the products and geographies form the basis of the forecasts, but the niches are then derived from these forecasts and sales responsibility assigned. And we would, just in our general reports, we've got probably millions of forecasts just on pharmaceutical, air, water, and energy products. And one other thing I might mention there is a lot of these are related to each other. So we have all these facts and factors for bioreactors, for centrifuges, for dryers, for scrubbers. But if you're doing a valve, pump, hose, controls analysis, it is critical to know what process equipment goes into each one of these installations and how many valves and pumps and so forth each would use. So there is an economy of scale and a necessity really to look at all the air, water, energy products when you're trying to assess the market for one of them. Move on to the next slide. So in summary, the most profitable market is an aggregation of niches. And the identification of each niche is a task that we've undertaken. And so we're pulling together all the facts and factors. And this is done in a number of different ways, but it's not something that's been done overnight. So a lot of what we've done here dates back even to the founding of the company, where we started gathering these facts and factors and leveraging them. So, but they become the foundation really of the business plan when you get these forecasts. And the business plan, again, is based on these niches. So the quantification can be validated and adjustments recommended by any and all once you have this level of detail. So the plan basically gives you the numbers that you need, but also a way to keep them updated. So I'd like to thank you for spending the time with us, and we're very happy to answer any questions. This is Bob McIlvain, and you can reach me at 847-226-2391. Be glad to talk to you, answer any questions that might have arisen in the discussion today. So thanks again.